Hey, Cider Crusaders, I want to talk about people rioting after your team wins the championship and what this says about human nature. So I used to think that this was abnormal behavior, right? Climbing streetlights, breaking windows, in one guy's case, eating horse manure. But I'm coming to the conclusion that this is actually, that's the normal behavior. And not acting like a fool is the unexpected behavior. Let me explain this because I know this is a paradigm shift. It was for me. Humans are broken and fallen and really evil. Amazing Grace, we all know the song. It goes, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a what? That saved a blank like me, a wretch, a despicable person. The Bible says no one is righteous. Not even one. That is our normal state. It's not good. So to keep us upright and at least properly functioning enough to be able to work with and amongst our fellow human beings, there are internal guides and external guides. We're just going to focus on the external ones right now for now. These are guardrails in society that say this is proper behavior. If you deviate from this, there will be negative consequences for your life. Now, some of these guardrails are legal, right? You can't punch someone in the face. If you do, you go to jail. Some of these guardrails are societal. You can't eat horse manure, for instance. Like you legally can, but it's socially frowned upon. These societal guardrails, we have a name for them. They're called culture. We are so close to chaos. All of us, each of us, at any given moment in time, we are this close to chaos. And you're thinking, oh, well, maybe other people, but not me. No, you too. Me too. And I'll prove how we are in just a second. But we're this close. What's keeping us upright? Culture. Culture keeps us upright and in line, right? So upright, standing tall, and in line, moving in the right direction. Now, what's interesting about the Super Bowl and some other national championships, for whatever reason, our culture says that if your team wins the championship, then there are no cultural, societal guardrails for one night. That's it. You got one night. So act like a fool for like 8 hours. Right? Or in other words, act like you normally would if society didn't have guardrails telling you not to. And this is what you get. Chaos and eating horse manure and everything that's a metaphor for. Now, the guy actually did eat horse manure, but it's also a metaphor. Now, in normal circumstances, the eating horse manure guardrail in our culture firmly in place. That's good news. No one thinks that that's socially acceptable. But there are other guardrails in our normal life that have eroded. This is why cultural conservatives care so much about culture. I'll just share one example from today. There's 100 more every day. Have you seen the picture of the Hadid sisters, Bella and Gigi Hadid? They're two models, they're sisters, I don't know, in their 20s or something. And they're posing naked together. Intertwined, right? Like their bodies sexually like touching against each other. Two naked sisters. Now, if you're immersed in our over-sexualized culture, where this guardrail has been eroded, then you think that that's, I don't know, beautiful or whatever. And you have a society where you have the photographer and the girls and their former model mom and, you know, it's art, whatever. And you got the lighting guy and all the other people involved in this and the people at British Vogue who printed the picture. And everyone thinks that this is beautiful. But if you live in normal land, you see that and you think, what the world's going on? Who could think that that's okay? Who thinks that that's like normal or acceptable? Like, I put on our Facebook page not long ago pictures from a Playboy magazine in 1957. There are women dressed with more clothes than a 90-year-old librarian. Like tube socks, baggy sweaters, skirts below the knees, and the guys are gawking at her. It's like a parody. And then I compared Playboy from 1957 to what women wear at the Grammys, right? They look like hookers. So this is the result of a cultural guardrail that has been eroded for the last 50 years or so. And now that there's no guardrails, it's just game on. Sure, naked sisters, whatever. So what's the bigger problem with this? All right, big picture. So I talked to Jordan Peterson recently. He makes an argument to his students that if you were born in Nazi Germany, you'd probably be a Nazi. Why? Why does he make that argument? That's the question I asked him. Here's what he said.
Why did you even feel the need to make that argument in the first place? Like, what were you seeing? What were you feeling with students that was even?
Oh, well, part of it was that I spent a long time trying to understand what happened in Nazi Germany, and the terrifying conclusion of such an analysis is that, oh, that was ordinary people who did it. Oh, I'm an ordinary person. Oh, that means I could do that. Well, that's a terrible thing to recognize about yourself, but it's the truth. There's a great book called Ordinary Men. That's a study of police battalion that went into Poland during World War II to mop up after the Nazis marched through. And it details their transformation from ordinary run-of-the-mill middle-class policemen into brutes who were taking naked pregnant women out into fields and shooting them in the back of the head. And it just describes how ordinary people can do terrible things. And the thing is, when you read history and you see all the terrible things that people did, the thing you should think is, well, I'm one of those creatures who did those terrible things. And then you learn something about yourself. You might learn to take yourself a little more seriously. That's the first thing. It's like, if you're capable of that sort of mayhem, you should keep a closer eye on yourself than you do.
So when I first heard this argument, obviously I rejected it, right? Denial. I think, if I was in Nazi Germany, I wouldn't have been a Nazi. I would have been Friedrich Bonhoeffer, plotting to kill Hitler, right? I would have been the guys who we talked about a couple weeks on my radio show who secretly loaded a bomb in Hitler's plane and willing to sacrifice their own lives in that plane to take out Hitler. Right? That would have been me. I would have been the hero. Well, it's easy to think that. I think, well, the reason I'm not, that I wouldn't have been a Nazi or gone along with it is because I'm a good person. I have a nice moral foundation that I live my life by. Got a lot of discipline, strong moral code. Yeah, don't get too proud of yourself, Slater. I ask this to Peterson as well. He says a lot of this is because of good fortune.
So what's keeping us from that? What's keeping me from that, from being that person?
Oh, a lot of it's just good fortune. It's pretty easy to be civilized and decent when your society is running extraordinarily well, and when there's unemployment rate has fallen to 3%, everybody's fundamentally rich, and we basically trust each other. So a lot of it is the good fortune of our social structure, and that's a testament, I would say, to the integrity of our institutions. But a huge part of it is you're just not in the wrong place. Now, you could still be a good person in the wrong place, but you'd have to practice that really hard now so that if the temptation arose, you wouldn't take it. People do nasty little things to get ahead, even when everything is fine around them. Imagine what sort of terrible things they would do to get ahead when the stakes are high. So
and life or death.
You have to train yourself carefully. And, partly what I've been suggesting to people, and this is rule 8, I think, in the book, is tell the truth, or at least don't lie. That's a good start. If you can train yourself not to say things you know to be false, then you're well on the way to putting yourself together ethically so that if the temptation arose for you to become successfully tyrannical, you would reject it.
He said, Slater, it's easy to be a good person in our society with our prosperity. It's easy. It's too easy. It lulls us into thinking that we're good. I think that's why so many young people, especially in America, like socialism. It's not because things are so bad and we need it. It's because things are so good. And kids don't realize how evil people are capable of being. So they equate socialism with being nice, right? Because it's easy in our society to think, people will share and be honest and good and wait their turn and wait in line and be generous. No, people won't. They never have been. Because we are not those things. To go back to how I started this, we're not. We're fallen. We're broken. We're evil people at our core. it's actually easier to be those things, generous and giving and patient. It's actually easier to be those things when we're wealthy and safe and prosperous and healthy. And that's because of capitalism, which then sets the stage where we're so wealthy and healthy that people think we need more socialism now. It's kind of a deadly cycle. But I don't want to get into a whole socialism capitalism thing. So what's the takeaway from this? I have three. I think it's important to know first what evil you are capable of. Me too. For me, it gives me a kick in the pants to make myself a better person. Second thing, it's important to know what society is capable of, what all of us, like many people in groups, are capable of, what evil we're capable of. For me, it makes me more aware of the importance of these cultural guardrails. And three, for me, it's awareness that life is a million little decisions. Yeah, there's big decisions here and there, obviously, but really it's mostly the little ones. And they're all the time. They're constantly. I think of Ernest Shackleton, Arctic explorer. You got to read the book Endurance. It's amazing. At the end of 2 years of being stuck in the Arctic, they had to make a last-ditch effort to find landfall. So they launch in this little lifeboat. There's 6 of them. They have to travel 900 miles to this island. I'm in San Diego, so it's San Diego to Denver. Right? It would be like finding a needle on a football field blind. So they set sail. If they miss the island, if they go past it, then they go out in the middle of the ocean and they die. 15 days. 15 days. And they made it. Think about how impossible it is. Every measurement they made had to be spot on. If they were 1 degree off at any moment, they would have sailed past the island and gone into open sea. So think about that, right? You had to be spot on the whole time. If you were off like this, then after 15 days, you'd be way over there. It wouldn't have been close. They had to be precise at every moment, or else they totally would have missed it. It's the little decisions you make every day. Let's be aware of them and don't get too far off course.